Hello everyone, my name is Jynx. This is Geekin Out. This is episode number 1. What I wanted to share first of all is the video game that, I'll be honest, kind of changed how I look at video games forever. Thankfully, the developers of this said game have definitely given it some attention. I'm talking about Final Fantasy IV. When I first encountered this game was on the Super Nintendo back in, I believe, 91, 92. It was released in 1991. And when I first saw this game, I was over at a friend's house, and he lived behind me. Our fence separated our 2 yards, and I would hang out with him quite often. But his dad was one of those people who pretty much bought everything technical, and he was a big tech geek, and he had computers and the video game systems. He had a Nintendo with this huge library of games. And then when he picked up the Super Nintendo, he was like the hottest thing on the block. I swear, when I was watching him play this, there were at least 5 other kids in the room watching him play this, and I was watching it and I thought, wow, it's colorful, it's got great music, I really like what I'm seeing. And I didn't really know what it was. I was being shown how to do pencil and paper role-playing by another friend of mine, but I had no idea that pencil and paper role-playing games spawned video games like this. I was completely in the dark about it. So when I finally got the opportunity to play this game, and a very proud thing for me as a collector. Unfortunately, my collection is quite small compared to some of you other guys out there, but this is the original cartridge that I played on. This was my friend's dad's cartridge, and later in life, I believe it was when I was in high school, I finally convinced him to let me buy it off of him, and he sold it to me for like $10. So I played through this game. And first couple hours I was kind of bored. I didn't really understand it. The character names, unfortunately, I couldn't pronounce. Cecil, the main character, his name, I had a hard time pronouncing it. I don't know why. I think it was because I was a young kid. I was 9 years old. I still was, working on that sort of stuff. But I remember that was one of the big memories of me, was just trying to pronounce this guy's name. And then later on, I started really getting into the story, what was happening to these characters. The game opens with the Dark Knight Cecil. He is on an airship, and these basically think of a gigantic galleon flying in the air, big propellers and that sort of thing. And he is on a mission to retrieve the 4 crystals from the world. And what it is that the army is invading, his country is invading these other countries and taking the crystal by force. And he feels that this is wrong, that his king has been misguided in this plot to take all of these crystals, that something's happened to this man that he had grown up with. And some of these story insights don't show up until the later installments of this one in particular. But he returns back to his home country of Baron with the water crystal from the kingdom of Mysidia, and he presents it to the king, and then as he's leaving the throne room, he stops. He turns around and he asks the king, why am I being made to do this? And he is stripped of his rank as captain of the Red Wings, the airship fleet of Baron, and is given a mission to go north into this village of Mist. And his friend Cain is sent along with him because Cain tries to stand up for him there in the throne room, and the king says, well, fine, if you are going to support him, then you will go with him. And it starts off with these 2 characters, Cain and Cecil. And the story slowly, actually quite quickly in fact, it holds you along, moves you from place to place. You meet all of these other great and incredible characters. Several of note is the White Mage Rosa, is Cecil's lover. The airship engineer Sid, which shows up in just about every single Final Fantasy game. There's always a Sid, regardless of what his role is, but he's usually involved with airships. And then you also have the Summoner Rydia, which they meet in Mist, the Karate Master Yang, the prince of another kingdom called Damsian. His name is Edward. Completely worthless character. I'd go on and on about him. And several others down the line, and they constantly will come in and out of your party, helping Cecil defeat the darkness within himself, and then ultimately save Baron and the world. Now, I'm not going to try to divulge any story plots or any spoilers, but throughout the years, this game has made a few different developments, but for the most part has stayed the same. Most notably, for the Final Fantasy series in general, what Final Fantasy II brought to the table was the active time battle system, whereas instead of all of your characters waiting patiently to do all of their actions and the monsters just sitting there waiting, every so often everybody will get an action depending on their speed stat. And I always found this to be quite interesting, but of course, as I've said, this was my first RPG game. So when I go back and play the older ones now, I keep thinking to myself, God, I wish there was active time because of this and that. But I really liked the battle system because it kept you engaged. It was fast. It was fast-paced, and depending on how fast your characters were, the battles would change because different characters would get different turns. And there are some monsters where you would hit them, and they automatically would get an attack or an action as soon as you hit them. Several down the road near the end of the game will do that. But for the most part, this game was pretty basic. You didn't get any ways of customizing your characters like some of the other Final Fantasies will give you. Every single character had a role. You had a white mage, you had a paladin, you had a summoner, you had a dragoon, and they all had their set abilities. And every single character had a special ability. Kain, for instance, can jump and cause damage when he hits the ground. Rosa uses white magic. She will heal the party, throw spells on the monsters, or throw spells on your opponents, and so on. And everybody sticks to their role in that respect. Everyone has a different class, and they stay their job class. They don't move. And when I finished this game, a couple things were very apparent to me. One, the music. Nobuo Uematsu composed the music for all of the Final Fantasies up to number 10. And that gentleman, if you've ever seen a picture of the man, he's always smiling. He's one of those personalities. You meet him, and he is all smiles, all happy, and he's just one of those people that is not in the... he doesn't let the fame get to him. He's very, very happy, a very happy individual, and very happy to meet his fans. But his music in this game was the first time we ever heard his subtle melodies, and the sound of his music is such that it's captivating. It hits a chord with you, even in a 16-bit. The 16-bit synthesized sound, it hits a chord. It gets you. And it made the game so much more than just 16-bit pixels. It was just incredible. My collection involves all of the incarnations of this game, plus the soundtrack. Throughout the years, this game has been re-released and rehashed. I don't want to say rehashed, but given a little facelift here, and the script has been given a better translation over the. But in later installments, it does get more refined, and the story kind of is flushed out some more, and it just makes more sense. But the first time that I saw a re-release of this game was right here on the PlayStation 1. This is Final Fantasy Chronicles. And they finally retitled it properly. When the game came here to the States, it was known as Final Fantasy II, because us Americans did not know that there were two other Final Fantasies in between. We had Final Fantasy I on the NES, and then we jumped straight to the SNES with Final Fantasy IV, which is 2. But then they finally labeled it correctly in the PlayStation re-release, PlayStation 1 re-release. And this was also bundled with another fan favorite, Chrono Trigger. I will do a review on this one later. But this was a great dual set. The 16-bit graphics and all that were preserved. The music was preserved. Basically, this was an opportunity for a whole nother, well, I almost want to say generation of gamers to experience this amazing game. Not much more notable about this set, but I'm very glad to have it. And then later on down the line, Square started re-releasing all their classic RPGs on the Game Boy Advance, and they did a rendition of 4. This got a small graphical facelift. Unfortunately, the music is not as good because the Game Boy Advance could not reproduce the music from the Super Nintendo as perfectly, but the graphics were there. So the gameplay got a few enhancements. As I said, most notably, the music wasn't as good, but the battle system was pretty much as it is from this particular version. But the nice thing was that they added the active time battle, the time bars to each of your characters, so you could see when that character was going to act next. In this game, that was not shown. It just showed their hit points, so many out of so many. The other note on this game is that they made it so you could, later on in the game, you could switch your characters out from your party with characters that you had gotten previously. Again, this game did not allow that. One other thing they added was a challenge dungeon at the end of the game. You beat the game, and then you go to the final zone, and there is a dungeon that is opened up, and every single character has a particular level of the dungeon. You can get enhanced items for them. You can also go and beat the game with the different characters, and you get a slightly better and different story. So a great set, especially on the Game Boy Advance, which in my opinion is one of the best handhelds that Nintendo has ever made. And moving forward again with the Nintendo DS. For some reason, Square has loved to re-release their stuff on portable systems. I'm not a huge fan of portable systems. I'd rather be on a TV. But this particular version of 4 really impressed me, because this was a true redo of the game. They went back and they redid the graphics entirely. Instead of 16-bit overhead view, you now have a 3D roaming kind of overhead view of the battle. All the battles are, instead of being face-on with your characters here and your monsters here, it actually turned it so your characters are here and your monsters are out here. And it was, like I said, completely 3D. Most notably, though, voice acting. Every single character finally has a voice in this game. Different bits of the story are fleshed out a bit more. Small cutscenes of the characters speaking and different action scenes. And then, of course, a gorgeous CG opening to this game. All the characters done in this beautiful Square Enix style. The 3D that they've really become known for now, their CG cutscenes. This game, however, is not easy. I would do battles in this game and think to myself, well, I know what I need to do. I hit the monster with this spell and do this and that and whatever. This game, not so much. This version, I gotta be honest, kicked my butt. I spent so much time getting through battles that were an absolute cakewalk in the other versions, and now I'm ripping my hair out, I'm yelling, I'm screaming at it, and I almost threw my DS. But something funny there, I would not have owned a DS if I hadn't bought this game. This is the reason I own a Nintendo DS, is because of this game. So I tend to follow Square wherever they go. And then the last rendition, which I'm still currently playing, is Final Fantasy IV: The Complete Collection. This is on the PSP. Again, rivals the Game Boy Advance for best video game system on a handheld, best handheld video game system. I can't say enough good about the PSP because of all the options that it gives you. But this game is Final Fantasy IV. The original game. There is an interlude chapter, which is maybe an hour or so of gameplay. And then you have Final Fantasy IV: The After Years, which is literally a direct sequel, 17 to 19 years in the future from the original game's storyline. You follow Cecil's son, Sayador, and several of the other characters. One other character has had a child, and it's an incredible way to relive the characters and see it all in a new story, and all the characters got a facelift, character portraits, the whole bit. This particular version has been given a huge graphical facelift. Much cleaner, much prettier, but it retains the 16-bit gameplay, just like this version and this version here.